right, welcome to a new edition of Mob Talk. I'm Dave Schratwiese.
And I'm George Anastasia.
George, the death of the last gangster, Ron Previte.
A one-of-a-kind individual.
All right, George, we've got a special guest joining us for this episode, John Terry, former head of the FBI's Mob Squad, Squad 1. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate that. We're going to talk about Ron Previte today. George, let's start with the last gangster, Ron Previte. Tell me what your thoughts on him.
I mean, this was a guy who was in the life and he was wired up the whole time, and that made a big difference, I think. This was a guy who I think decided it was over in terms of organized crime, and he had to figure out, how am I going to survive this? And his way was to wire up and work with the FBI.
John put away 3 mob bosses, a very effective witness and a very effective informant.
Absolutely, and to echo what George said, when we approached Ron about cooperating with us and wearing a wire, that was the exact approach we took. You know, you survived Stanfa, you survive, you know, how much longer are you going to be able to be out on the streets and still provide us with information? Here's an opportunity for you to make some money, continue to provide us with information, and at the same time be a witness, which is what we wanted. We wanted tapes, we wanted him to be a witness.
He was a fearless guy.
Absolutely. There were times that, there were a couple of incidents, one comes to mind specifically, where he was wired up and a piece of equipment was showing, and Ron, very cool, calm, was able to hide it back, continue the conversation. Nobody knew about it. If they had seen that, or if anybody else, if it had been me there, I would have probably freaked out, but not Ron. Cool as could be, handled it and kept talking.
Okay. George, not a saint, Ron Previte.
And you know, not a saint, and was not afraid to say that. He never sugarcoated who he was or what he did. He used to say, I'm a general practitioner of crime. Yeah. But I think he, you know, in a bizarre way, he enjoyed the life, and I think he really enjoyed wearing the wire. He liked that excitement.
Okay, corrupt cop.
To begin with,
Stole money out of a casino in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Mob captain. Said he committed every crime but no murders.
Yeah, he had an interesting take on that. He said, if a guy owes me money and I kill him, how am I going to get paid? I mean, he was very much a mercenary across the board.
And John, I think I saw a quote from him saying that I was all about making money from the time I got up in the morning till the time I went to bed at night. He got paid handsomely by the FBI, but it was well worth it from what I understand.
Absolutely, and not only was it well worth it to us, we also took into consideration the fact that we were telling him, you're not allowed to engage in any of your activities anymore. So we had to come up with a number that would appease him and at the same time put a value on the information he provided to us.
Okay, not only did he wear a wire, but then he got up at trial after trial and he was a very effective witness.
Absolutely. You know, you could attribute several of the convictions directly to his wearing a wire, which led to multiple wiretaps. We were up on Ralph Natale for over a year. The wiretaps of Natale in part gave us Milan. The mayor gave us James Mathis, who nobody talks about anymore, who used to be the school council president who died before he was sentenced. And then, of course, the Merlino group, the Young Guns.
Yeah. George, your thoughts? We sat in a courtroom multiple times and watched Ron Previte perform on the stand. He was really good.
He enjoyed being center stage. I mean, I think that was his final act, and he knew that was the end now. Last time he was going to be a wise guy was when he was up there testifying. But I think the tapes and his own personality carried the day.
John, he was really valuable in other ways. My understanding is he went around to college campuses and lectured student athletes about the dangers of gambling and loan sharking, things like that at colleges. He went to crime symposiums and seminars all over the world to teach people about organized crime.
He testified in front of the New Jersey State Commission of Investigation. He testified at a conference out in California that the Attorney General organized out there. And yes, he came and gave presentations at several colleges here in the Philadelphia area about the perils of gambling and how to avoid it.
Okay, he knew that.
Yes.
Firsthand.
Yep.
And he knew young kids should stay away from that.
Absolutely. And when you have somebody like that up there as opposed to somebody like me, kids will listen because he was in the life.
George, the wise guys like to call him the Fat Rat, not a really nice name or moniker to have for somebody. Yeah. But your thoughts, you hear a lot of chirping from the wise guys about Ron Previte. What do they have to say? You
know, they don't like him, they call him a rat, but at the end of the day, I think in the game that they were playing, he won and they lost. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And, you know, they like to say they won the trial with no murders, but the bottom line, if you call 12 or 14 years in prison winning, I don't know if I go for that.
Exactly, that's one thing. The other thing is this, you know, they can say all they want that they never liked him, this, that, and the other thing. When he was with Stanfa, 26 guys in the Stanfa organization got indicted. Previte did not. Right away, that's a red flag. Yet he was able to insinuate himself into the Natale Merlino faction and wear his wire and make more cases.
John, were you surprised by that he so easily kind of slipped into the Merlino, Natale, Borghese kind of organization there without them thinking none the worse?
I would say yes and no. No, because we felt all along that if the money was there, they would talk to him. Yes, because of what George just said, that after all these people get indicted and he's the one left standing, wasn't someone talking and saying, wait a minute, what's going on with this guy?
Wasn't it all about that he was an earner and he was making money and they wanted the money?
Absolutely.
It's all about greed. Right?
Absolutely. Money gave him access, gave us access through him to those guys.
All right. What did you think of the wires that he made, the tapes he made for you guys?
They were phenomenal. There were over 400 recordings that he did over a year and a half period of time. I mean, to have that kind of access, to have those recordings, even the ones that weren't played in court, were used for the Title III affidavits that we did. Those Title IIIs gave us, like I said before, Milan, gave us Mathis, gave us Merlino. I mean, it's, you know, I would not want to say that it's unprecedented, but in my experience, it comes pretty close. I mean, there have been great witnesses, but most of those witnesses in mob trials come after the indictment, or if someone tries to take a hit out on them. This guy was proactive, giving us real-time data that allowed us to expand our coverage and our investigative activities.
Okay, George, they so trusted him that they let him go up to Boston and Rhode Island and deal with the patriarchal crime family. They sent him up there, and he wore a wire up there too.
Right, and he set up the drug deal. And the guys in Boston ended up getting convicted for that drugs. Joey Molino beat that charge. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the level of that he had reached within that organization. He became their point man in another part of the country.
John, rank government witnesses for me. John Veazey was a great witness, dropped the hammer on the entire Stanford crime family. Ron Previte, Stanford, Joey. Where do you put those two guys?
You know, Veazey falls into that category that I mentioned before about a guy who, after the fact, he didn't do much proactive. They tried to kill him, he comes to us. Previte, again, I would say unprecedented. You know, the difference between Veazey and Previte, besides the fact that one was proactive and one was after the fact, was Veazey was a killer. Previte wasn't. And I think when you have a guy on the witness stand who can say, I did this, I did that at their direction, their order, it makes for a lot more credible presentation when you're trying to convict people.
And he's under day in and day out with those guys.
Yep.
Puts the wire on, goes to the racetrack, puts the wire on, goes down into South Philly, puts the wire on and goes to Boston. Was not afraid to wear a wire.
We met with Ron 3 to 5 times a week to wire him up, and it was the same routine. We'd meet him, we'd talk about who he was meeting with, what we hoped to gain through that conversation, and then Ron would go meet with him and come back and talk about it. We'd debrief him, and then we'd listen to the tapes to see what came out of it.
All right, George, your personal view on Ron Previte?
You know what? I genuinely like the guy. I got to know him very well. I knew him when he was with Stanford. At that point, I didn't know he was a cooperator. He became a good source for me, and he was probably the most erudite of any of these guys. He was well read. I mean, politically, I'm over here and he's over here. We clashed that way, but philosophically, an interesting guy. He knew who he was, and I appreciated that. It wasn't like he was trying to bull anybody. He was who he was, and in a way, he put it right out there.
John, your final thoughts on Ron Previte?
You know, Previte's viewing was last night, and there were approximately, I would say, 10 current or former law enforcement personnel there, and I think that says it all. We respected the work that he did. He, you know, again, to echo George, he didn't try to be something he wasn't. He was real to us, but we respected him because he delivered on what he said he could deliver.
All right, that's it for this week's edition of Mob Talk. More from John Terry in a couple of weeks. George, your final thoughts?
An inside look on the way things were and the way things might be.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time.